Hello and welcome to episode 50 of Just Keep Writing.
A podcast for writers, by writers, to keep you writing.
I'm Marshall.
I'm Nick.
I'm Will.
Guys, 50. We did it.
Woohoo!
I was trying to figure out what I was going to say, and I was just like, well, I'll just say it. We did it. We're at 50. Seems like a milestone.
It is a milestone.
Yeah. If this isn't a milestone, I don't know what is, because I think about, right before we'll jump on the show as a regular, it was like, are we going to keep doing this, or are we just kind of going to be sporadic?
Oh, no, dude. We're here. We're in it now. And we've changed quite a bit over this time. I don't know. What's it been? A couple years almost.
We're coming up on our 2-year mark in February.
Let's talk about the growth. Let's talk about, how you guys started it.
My gosh.
So growth is important. Nick, after, I don't know, I guess we met on the cruise, and then he kept texting me about starting a podcast, and I was just like, it's a lot of work, and like you have to be consistent, and like
I was willing.
Hard and
I was in.
That's
and
because
all Nick
has to do is talk. Okay,
exactly.
And
I didn't know that before. I did not know that ahead of time, and I didn't realize how much work it was going to be for Marshall, because he kept saying this "we" thing. It wasn't a "we" thing. It was a "you" thing that never turned into an "I" thing for you until it was too late.
But I feel like now I've delegated a bit. Once we brought Will on, we got some structure, some organization, and I think all
not to say we weren't organized before.
No, dude,
it was just a little bit spitballing.
We were barely getting together in time for us to record it and me to turn it around and edit it and get it out consistently. So the fact that we have been, I don't want to jinx it, but we have been consistently every other week now for months, which I'm pretty proud of. We've had some amazing interviews, and the beginning of at least one of our potential rotating guests, Brent Lambert, who has joined us multiple times over the last couple months.
Marshall, you mean to tell me that you guys not only had a new co-host, but you're going to have rotating guests on the shows too?
Yes. Sure. Are you an audience member all of a sudden? Because you're part of this, dude.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm on behalf of the audience here. Yes, you guys, you heard that right. So part of the growth thing, right? We added Will to the show. One, we brought Will on just to have good conversations because we were already doing that offline. Mm-hmm. Bringing Will on was a game changer, if you will.
The greatest thing ever. I'm kidding.
But I'm not. Did you hurt your arm? Pat yourself on the back there?
It was the second greatest decision we made. The first one was to start the podcast. The second was to get an actual producer.
Well, getting someone that could honestly text us and make us do things, because between me and Nick, it was, I don't feel like recording this week. All right, we won't. And it's like, should we get an interview? I don't know who we would do. It's like, it was just a constant, the two of us, there was no oomph, and Will provided the oomph.
And accountability.
Yeah,
I'll say that. And accountability. And I think that's something that maybe you guys can see in their episodes and whatnot. But I mean, for as long as we did, Marshall, just you and I think we did it pretty good. We went pretty far.
Yeah.
I mean, we pretty much have 35 episodes.
Yeah. I mean, and look,
that's astounding.
And we got it to where we were doing every other week. We were starting to get more consistent. We were just we were kind of spinning our wheels on what we wanted the show to evolve into, because what I've learned from podcasting and listening to podcasts and creating podcasts and helping students do it is that eventually the podcast will evolve into something that you didn't expect. Right. And I'm happy with where we're at. And the fact that we're at episode 50 and we've got interviews coming up, we've got book deep dives, craft episodes and stuff coming up, and it's exciting and it's fun, and the community is awesome, and the Discord is still rocking, and people are giving us money, which I'm going to talk about in a minute when we're done with this, but it's exciting.
The timing of bringing Will on to kind of evolve was absolutely needed, because I think for 35 episodes, and for a while there we were doing once a week, we maximized what we could talk about on our own. And I think we have always wanted to have more guests. We always wanted to do deep dives and things like that. But I mean, at the time, full-time working, family, school, you name it, we didn't have the extra motivation behind it. Enter Will, who's an avid reader beyond anyone's reasonable comprehension there. Who has
I don't know about that.
I'm sorry.
And no offense, he doesn't have a family and stuff to bog him down like we get bogged down sometimes.
Oh no!
What I mean by that,
simple.
It's just the dance classes, the school, the makeup, the hair.
Well, you're one of the busiest people I know, and probably one of the better time managers that I've met. The fact that you do all the things you do as far as what you do for a living, on top of, fitness and writing and everything else that you do, is, if you had children and stuff on top of that, I'm interested to see what kind of human you would be. But I feel like we all balance each other pretty well at this point. But
100%. I mean, we've heard lots of stories about Nick being the new dad with these 3 kids, and it's been a balancing act. Okay, and then with Waldorf. We have Waldorf, aka Marshall. Oh yeah, I got these animals. I got these kids. Because Marshall has like chickens. I'm surprised he doesn't have like cow and sheep.
Next, in a year from now, I'll have a full-fledged farm. Probably, who knows?
Hey, that's my goal. I want a horse.
Let's stop it with the horses.
Oh, you get out. How about the
so
goat?
Anyway, we're at this point now, and I'm really happy with where we're at, and I feel like this intro is going to be a little more silly, probably because of when we're recording this, but also just how we feel about where we're at, guys. And we're deep into December. It's going to be 2021 soon. And we're here to intro an amazing interview we did with Jennifer Udden a couple months ago, actually. And I'm going to let Will kind of elaborate on that part of it here in just a minute. But we're here to talk about episode 50. We're here to talk about the interview. But also, we just want to thank the people that do consistently contribute to this madness that it has evolved into, right? So if you guys don't mind for just a second, I'm going to list off our patrons real quick and just kind of give a big shout out to the people that actually literally give us money. And I'm not going to list how much they give us or anything like that. Don't be silly. But our community is awesome. And a lot of this comes from the retreats and the workshops and stuff that we've done. And this is just this community that we've been building. And I love everything about these people. So, ready?
I'm ready.
Go for it. Name that list.
Got okay, here's the list. Hold on. I'm gonna make this a little bigger.
Keep going, Poppy.
So I can get the I was gonna read last names if they happen. Okay. All right, so let's go. So we got David Whale, who's been I think our longest contributor, probably. I'm gonna skip one of them. I'm just kidding.
Which would be me. Still contributing to the podcast that I now co-host.
What's so funny is I still see your name on here and I'm just like, wait, you still give us money? You're part of the show. But I do appreciate your money, dude. So thank you. Gabriel, who we know from the WXR retreat, who is just one of the awesome humans that I know.
He's also in my writing group, my Sunday night writing group. Jealous much, everyone.
Yeah, and he kept me company too at one of the last virtual retreats too, because we were up late and I was on no sleep, and he, I think, kept me sane a little bit there. So thanks, Gabriel. We've got Marie Parks, Mindy, Barbara Lund, who we know and love, of course, Constance, Debbie, Carrie, and Elon. So thank you, all of you, so very much for contributing to this show and making it possible for doing what we do. Helps us pay those little fees and stuff that we have to pay. And maybe one day, maybe one day we'll be in the red. Yeah, in the red.
In the green. We want to be in the green.
In the black.
Yeah.
I was going to say, they call it Black Friday for a reason.
But I think for the future too, for 2022, because we have to survive the rest of 2021. For 2022, that's when, that summer we really get into doing our own workshops.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, we got lots of plans, guys. So if you're wondering if you are considering contributing, we have a lot of perks and stuff. Check us out, patreon.com/justkeepwriting. We've got daily writing prompts and early access to episodes and all kinds of stuff that we put up there. And eventually I'm going to put up some of the videos from our interviews up there. I might backlog some of them too. And so maybe we'll make that part of one of the higher tiers. So I have them all on my computer, so I want to do that really bad.
Hey, I'm going to say this, though. Yeah. Yes, well, go ahead.
No, you're
more
important. No.
The only problem with that is sometimes people on the interviews say things that they don't want on the episode, and so I'd have to actually edit it.
Yeah, you might want to edit it.
Well, just don't post those ones. How about that?
Right.
No, because they're almost all of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. So joining our Patreon channel, right? You guys are not going to be a bad company. I'll just say that. We have some cool perks out there, daily writing prompts. If you hit a certain tier, you get an awesome coffee mug with your current work in progress and your name printed on it. Kind of showing that we're recognizing you as a writer and your next big thing. But I mean, going through that list of who's currently a Patreon member for us, there's a lot of big things coming for a lot of our members. I mean, for example, Marie Parks, she was actually a finalist for the Book Pipeline contest with the story that she wrote with Jesse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah. And I know, and I can't, there's nothing for me to actually talk about, but I know Elon too has a lot of big things coming in the next year. And so we're like really looking forward to see what he's about to produce out and things like that. And Barbara, well, I can't say enough about Barbara. She's actually in the other writing group that I'm in, and Barbara's got some stuff on the horizon too. So I mean, like you guys, you're in good company, especially if you're up on our Discord talking to people. I mean, David Well, he's got a whole trilogy that he just recently put out in the last couple of years, Radko's War. So
actually, just got done.
Oh, see, look at that, and Will has them, which therefore Will's going to read them, and we can dissect them from him.
So, and this is, I don't know. And you're right, Nick, it's important. These people, if you want to talk to any of these folks, if you don't know these folks, jump in our Discord. That's the easiest way to do it. And we have our own little community there. That's just so much fun. We've got people looking for help and bouncing ideas off each other and just venting sometimes. I mean, it's what we need to do as writers. So.
Yeah, I was going to say there's not a single person in there that will turn you away for anything. And our most used categories that we have or channels that we have is ask a question and then
get an answer. Maybe not the one you were looking for.
No.
You'll get an answer.
But yeah, we have an ask a question thread, and it is our most used one right now. And then other than like our general, but yeah, it's really fun. I hope to see more people on there. And I hope to hear more about you listeners and what you're up to and the accomplishments that you guys are having, because I love celebrating that with you.
Indeed. All right. Anything else about where we're at as a podcast or anything episode 50 related? Or should we just get right into talking about the interview real quick? Any other?
We're 50, which is older than all of us, so that's great.
Thankfully, not all of us combined, because otherwise we'd be young.
It's true. I mean, it's tough being the baby of the group.
I know it's hard. It's so hard being so young, Will. I know. I'm the old guy. I know it. It's fine.
I'm just telling everyone, Botox works. Okay.
So,
Botox
and here's the reason. The reason this is funny, I'm not going to even say why it's really funny, but when I do eventually release some video content out on the Patreon, you'll see why when Will says what he's saying right now, it's 100% true.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
mathematically,
honestly,
maybe not, but
maybe not.
Let's
Visually,
just talk about
absolutely.
the facial
Visually.
expressions you all miss
What?
from
Of
these
whose facial
videos.
expressions?
Ours, as a
Oh.
collective whole.
Yeah,
It's true.
You're definitely not benefiting from the video feed in an audio format. So, gentlemen, let's talk about Jennifer Udden, because we had her on September, was it, Will?
It was September. Yep.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
interviewed her in September, and it was an amazing interview. And you're going to get some stuff out of this that is just phenomenal. But I'm going to turn over to Will to kind of say what's kind of happened since we interviewed Jennifer to now. Because some of it, we've mentioned Jennifer before when we had Maurice on a couple of times, because
And
Mur, because she was an agent for both of them as well. So I'm gonna let Will kind of recap and say what's going on before we get into the interview, because the interview is great, but some things have changed since September. So
Jen is how I like to call her. She
just trying to be
had, yes,
Her preferred
she
name.
exactly. Jen has left agenting, and now she is doing just freelance editing, which she comes highly recommended both from our former guests, Maurice and Mur, that she's amazing. So if you need your novel workshopped and edited by a professional who knows the industry, we will include Jen's Reedsy account that you can contact her through. And when Jen made the announcement publicly, because her clients knew for about a month, it was just more of a state of 2020 and just reevaluating things. And it's sad that she's leaving, but the knowledge that she drops on the show is still relevant. We talked a lot about COVID and like what's been happening. And she's just wonderful. And we are definitely still going to have her back on the show, because now she's going to have a totally different perspective as like being a freelance editor and, really working with people where she doesn't have to pitch them to editors. So we'll definitely have Jen back in the future for sure.
yeah, absolutely. I'm glad, and I'm glad you said that, Will, because having her back after she has been in this new role for a while, I think will really round out this conversation with where we're at, plus just what folks that want to publish books need to know, because the industry is, and we've been talking to Brent Lambert quite a bit too, the industry is glacial in how slow it is, and
What?
things, and you kind of have to know what's going on and have that expectation as well. And editing is a part of, and having an editor is part of that process. So
I think too, yeah, totally. Because I mean, even just talking with Brent, because he did the editing for the tour and Faya magazine, which was great. I don't know if anyone read it, but if you didn't, you can go to tour.com. It's interesting. You learn a lot from everyone that you meet. And Jen, like Brent, is like a fountain of knowledge, which is really great. And
Indeed.
she's fun. And she's still going to do her podcast with Bridget Smith, who is still an agent on shipping and handling.
Oh, good. They're going to keep that up.
Yeah. Good. They're going to just rework it in a way of now that Jen's really just diving into freelance editing. And Bridget's going to still give her spin as, being the agent. So we can't wait to have Jen back in the show a couple of months.
Yeah, we mentioned the podcast during the episode as well. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check out Shipping and Handling. It's a wonderful show. I love that podcast so much. Nick, do you have anything you want to say about the interview?
I can't speak enough about Jen and how awesome she is. I've had the pleasure actually to interact with her on 2 separate occasions at conferences and workshops, and she's great. I'm actually, she was my number 1 agent. I'm going public with that now to query next year. And so now I have to do some research and re-rank some people. But yeah, she's great. I mean, between Mur and Maurice and things like that, and the other books that she helped get published, like you couldn't
Sparza's Docile.
Say that again, Will.
KM Sparza Docile. I don't know if you guys read that. Me and Jen talk about it on the podcast, or it might have been the after the official show. We kept talking.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't gone through the whole episode yet, so
No, it might be on the after show, but we talked about that book, which was amazing. And like Jen has a really great eye for storytelling and for what, can move in the market.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things about Jen is when she tells you that she's looking for diversity in her books and who she wants to represent, it's not lip service. She goes out and does it. So
she's going to make a great editor.
I'm probably going to use her as an editor. So
do it.
I'll hopefully give you guys some feedback on that and be like, Jen, you're so awesome. Let's tear my book apart on our show so people know what you do, and I won't cry.
Oh, you'll cry.
I'm already crying.
You'll cry.
Well, all right. So, guys, here's the thing. Most of us have a beverage in our hand. I'm just gonna give a cheers to you two. Thank you for going on this journey with us and to 50 more episodes and beyond. Right? Cheers, boys.
That's right.
To infinity and beyond.
Hitting 100 in 2021.
Exactly. And on top of that, I guess we'll let you listen to the interview with Jen Udden now. So thanks for listening. And thanks again to all the patrons. And thanks to Nick and Will for bearing with my time management.
You guys, we totally forgot.
What did we forget? Oh my God. I just stopped it. I'm just kidding. What?
Oh, I was going to say, at the time of this airing, Merry Christmas.
Oh.
Or Happy Kwanzaa and Happy Hanukkah.
And this is why we have Will.
I'm just going to say Happy Holidays. Okay, and joining us this week is co-host of the Shipping and Handling podcast and our favorite literary agent, Jennifer Udden. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm good.
We're excited
really
to have you.
I'm so glad that we could work out a good time.
All right, go
you
ahead.
Want me to start? Okay.
Yes, I do. Always.
All right. So, Jen, we asked this of anyone we're interviewing, this next question, and we get hilarious responses. So, describe your career in 3 words.
It doesn't have to be a 3-word sentence, just 3 words.
Oh man, 3 words. Random. Oh God, this is the kind of game I'm really bad at. Random, connections, luck.
Great. So can we talk about those 3 words? So why random?
So when I graduated from college in 2008, another great year. Just
I bought a house right before the housing market crashed that year.
Oh yeah. No, I was working in development and fundraising for a theater company, a nonprofit theater company. Another great career to be in during a financial crisis. And after doing that for about 2 years, I was like, not only am I like really not very good at this, I also hate it and dread every day with like a bone deep agony. So I decided to quit without like a backup plan. And I said, if I don't find anything within like a month, I'm going to move back to Texas. And I really didn't want to move back to Texas. So I basically called everyone I knew in New York and was like, hi, let's get drinks. And you can tell me about what you do. Just because I was like, I'll take anything. I will literally do anything. And I was having drinks with my roommate at the time's cousin.
Okay.
And she was a paralegal. And after about 3 glasses of wine, she was like, do you like fantasy novels? And I was like, I do like fantasy novels. And so it turned out that her roommate needed an intern. And so that's how I got my first job in publishing, was by having drinks with my roommate's cousin.
Oh, man.
Wow. That's amazing. So connectiveness, or being right? That was the next word.
Connections.
Yeah. Connections. Okay.
Basically that connections kind of come in the most random places. By keeping in touch with basically everyone I've ever met, I think I've been able to have a really strong career just because things kind of come around and you find out about them sooner. And networking gets like a really bad rap because there is so much of it that is like terrible and elitist, and you have to sort of be in place to like take advantage of that. But at its basis, it's just sort of like knowing people and being confident enough to like reach out to them and be like, hi, we met once at a party. And I need a job.
It's true. It's true. On that point, do you feel like it's especially like, because I've lived in New York almost my whole life, more than where I grew up. Don't you feel like it's a very New York thing, though, just to simply engage with people because the city kind of pushes you to get out there?
Definitely. You can't really seal yourself off unless you're in the land of the rich, in which case anything is possible. But yeah, I mean, you meet someone at the bodega and it turns out that they work in the building next to you. And I mean, I literally found out that, so my sister and I have a dog, and when we adopted Barnaby, he came over from a rescue organization in Puerto Rico, and we had to pick him up at like the American Airlines baggage terminal at like midnight, and it was just like the worst night. But he's very cute and we love him. And his mom and one of his siblings was also being adopted that night. So one day I was in my old office, the BGL offices, and I heard this voice. They're like, "Oh, this is my dog Milu." And I was like, there can't be two fucking dogs in Brooklyn with this pretentious ass name. Yeah. And sure enough, the woman who had adopted Barnaby's brother with her partner worked 2 offices down from me. And I was just like, of all the co-working spaces in all the lands, it was this one.
That's so funny.
So yeah, I feel like New York is the only kind of place where that like happens on the regular. So
it's true. It's even though there's so many people here, it's such a small island.
There's 5 people in New York, and we all know each other, exactly. Even if we don't yet.
Exactly. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So what about luck?
Luck is just like having the stars align. So, which I guess all my words are like the same thing, but whatever. I don't make the words. I help sell the words. That's my excuse.
Exactly.
So, I mean, one instance was, so last year I had some issues with my old agency. I was sort of running the joint alone for a bit, and I had sort of given notice, and I knew that like on a certain day I was either going to be like starting my own agency or I would have found another job. And as it happened, my new boss, Joanna Volpe, who is amazing, and if she ever needs an organ of any kind, she's welcome to mine, was attending Worldcon in Dublin. And she was like, "Oh, hey, you want to get a drink?" And so we ended up getting drinks and talking. And then like 3 weeks later, she made me a job offer. And it was just like, and it was 2 days before like the day that was going to be my last day at my old agency. And I was just like, wow, really glad you decided to go to Worldcon this year, Joanna.
Just never know. You just never know.
You truly never do, which is why like I try not to say never about a lot of things, because you know, I don't necessarily like this kind of book, but maybe one of my clients will write it and then I'll sell it and it'll be like the best thing they've ever done. So it's good to not like cut things off. I don't know if that's like a hilarious answer.
No, that is.
No, it's perfect. Thank you.
Were books a big part of your life growing up?
Oh yeah. I was a big reader. My mom runs a theater company in Houston, and growing up there was a children's bookstore like right next door. Mm-hmm. And if I was like bored hanging around the theater, I would go and they would let me like read books as long as I didn't damage them. And so now, I mean, you can kind of see this situation. Like this is the shelf action, and please ignore the towels driving it. Like always been a big reader. I could read from a really young age too. So I was like from like 3. So I've always, you know, read books, always kind of just devoured whatever I could get my hands on. And I didn't even really intellectually know that publishing was like a thing. I was like, I mean, surely someone must be involved in getting the books from like the typewriter to the bookstore, but I didn't really have any idea of like how that worked until after I graduated. So I was late. I never had the dream of like, I'm going to be an editor or an agent, because I didn't know what those things were.
So speaking of that though, did it ever make you want to write?
You know, I've tried my hand at writing at various times. I've written fan fiction, you know, I've written one deeply terrible romance novel. You know, I think that where I am in my life now, I don't ever want to say no, but I just don't have time.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll get back into fan fiction. That seems doable.
Well, I couldn't imagine being an agent and having time to also write. Like that would be,
you know,
I mean,
there's agents who do it though.
No, I know, but I don't have enough time to do anything I do in my life. And it's like, I couldn't imagine that, but
Bill Clegg somehow had time to write a novel and like be addicted to meth. So, and be an agent. So, although I
anything's
guess
possible.
he got rid of the meth,
the meth really makes you faster. So
true. Although I think he had given up the meth by the time he started writing, but,
that's good.
Sorry, Bill Clegg. I'm sure you're a very nice man. I love your books. I mean, for me too, I have like a mental block about it. Like every so often I'm like, oh, that would be a good idea for a book. But I have weird feelings about agents, being an agent who writes, because especially if I was writing in the same genre as my clients, I would feel weird. But that's sort of for everybody to decide for themselves. So I'm just like, future me will deal with that if I ever write something. Right now, it's a moot point. So.
Gotcha. So you answered our one question about how you became an agent and just getting into publishing. Who do you represent? Tell our listeners who you represent now, or who you do want to shout out.
I have a really great list. I love all my children. I represent a pretty wide range of mostly fiction. I would say 99% fiction, and one standout nonfiction client. It's a range of stuff from adult science fiction and fantasy to YA to middle grade. Recent books that I've had come out this year, Francina Simone's Smash It, which is about a girl in high school who reads a Shonda Rhimes book and decides to make a fuck it list to like turn her life around. It's really charming. It came out last week. Even If We Break by Marika Nijkamp. Her debut novel was on the New York Times list for 73 weeks. And this one is about a group of teens who have been doing this like long running like role-playing game. And they go away to an isolated cabin in the woods for like one last weekend before they all graduate. And then they all start getting murdered.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Even If We Break, that came out 3 weeks ago. And then actually a lot of what I've had come out this year is YA. But I had one more YA come out in May called Wicked Magic. And that one is described as The Craft, only everyone has to deal with the consequences of their actions.
I like that.
And then a middle grade novel called Get a Grip, Vivi Cohen, which is an epistolary novel about baseball. So pretty eclectic. I also represent Maurice Broaddus, who writes amazing science fiction and fantasy. He has a big space opera coming out next year from Tor. Mm-hmm. Emma Newman, whose Planetfall series was nominated for Best Series at the Hugos this year. Unfortunately, she was up against fucking James S.A. Corey, and I was like, well, fuck. God damn it. Mur Lafferty, whose novel 6 Weeks was nominated for a Hugo. Also, K.M. Sparrow. Oh, K.M. Sparrow, Docile came out this year.
I love that book. That book was amazing. I've read it. The boys laugh at me because when I read something, I'll usually read it over and over again. I've read that book 11 times and counting.
That might be more times than I've read it.
Jen, because when I get addicted to a book, right?
It makes me so happy. So, oh my God.
There's a couple reasons. I was really excited it came out because, as someone who's in the queer community, I always really try to seek out those books. But that book is so fucking good. And at first I read it in a day because I just was into it. Then I keep reading things over and over again to be like, how did they do this? Or this was really smart. I fucking love that book.
You're going to love his next book so much.
I can't wait.
It's called First Become Ashes and it comes out in April of next year. And
I can't wait.
So good. Oh my God. It's so good. I feel like the books that I have this year kind of actually represent kind of the gamut of what I do, because my last book that comes out this year is a book called A Certain Hunger, which actually, I think I have it. I knew I had the ARCs with me. So this is A Certain Hunger. It comes out from Unnamed Press in December. And This book is basically Eat, Pray, Love meets American Psycho, about a woman who is a food writer who has an Eat, Pray, Love style midlife crisis and begins killing and eating her former lovers. I feel like for everything that I have, from the like very sweet middle grade to like the very fucked up thrillers, there's always some element that's like just a little off kilter, and that's what I love about my list. I love all my people.
That's a hell of a list.
That is amazing.
This one just got a star from PW, and it's so fucking good. I love it so much. And that one's actually it was an Audible original, so it's on audio now. But the print edition doesn't come out till this year, so yeah.
So when it comes to like with Docile, I remember I think I either heard you on Shipping Your Handling, or I was reading an interview that when you took that book on, you were like, you know what, it might be a while before we sell it. Mm-hmm. And then it sells like 2 days later.
In like 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So
I guess almost never happens.
Yeah. So I guess this is my next question. What has surprised you the most about representing authors' work?
The thing that has been surprising to me is how little actually ends up being surprising and how different every deal is. You can sell a book for an author and then sell another book for them, and then it'll go completely different the way that it did the first time. And it'll always go different based on like where someone is in their career. If you're selling a book for someone who's had 1 million books out, it's like, oh, this is a different process than someone than trying to convince someone to take on a completely new author. But I mean, selling that book in 2 weeks was certainly like, all right, that's a thing that happened. Because I thought that one was going to be like the hard sell. There's a lot of very explicit sexual content in there, and a lot of it is kind of upsetting. And I was hopeful that I would find a publishing partner for Kellen that would like get what he was trying to do and like be on board with that. And the fact that Carl read it and was like 2 days later, like, I'm obsessed with this. Like I will be purchasing this book. I was just like,
that's amazing.
I mean, and also like the deals that have come harder are sometimes also really satisfying. Like Marika Nijkamp's first book, This Is Where It Ends. I think it had been rejected like 30 times before Sourcebooks bought it. Wow. And my favorite thing was hearing people at cocktail parties be like, oh my God, I talked to someone at Random House and they totally said that they tried to buy that book. And I was like, bitch, no one tried to buy that book. We were delighted with the offer because it was the only one we had. You never know what's going to happen. That's kind of the fun thing about it. Sometimes it's like also like mind-numbing dread part of it because you're like, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but
right.
So my next question then goes into, do you feel the industry is changing with initiatives like We Need Diverse Books? And then considering the backlash of American Dirt.
Oh God, American Dirt, that fucking book. I mean, the industry is changing, but it's not changing fast enough. There's been a lot of lip service, and we've seen some pretty high level, like C-level diversity hires brought on. But the biggest issues in publishing are still the biggest issues. It's a tremendously underpaid profession. I mean, at least with editorial and sort of the publishing side, you have a salary and there's some semblance of financial steadiness. But on the agenting side, unless you have family money or unless you work 2 jobs or unless you work some other job within an agency, largely those positions are unpaid or they're commission based, which it's fine, but but there's no way to support yourself doing that. I was tremendously lucky in that the first job I had, I was an assistant, I was paid a salary. The second job I had, I was able to negotiate a draw for myself, which is basically an advance against earnings. It's not indentured servitude. And that's kind of what I'm on now. But, for so many people who want to get into the industry, if you don't have family money or if you don't have sort of like family support, it's tremendously difficult. And the industry has been very slow to raise its salaries, raise its, outreach efforts. It's still tremendously based on word of mouth, which benefits people like me, but, it doesn't benefit someone else who's trying to break in. So, I mean, I used to joke that I looked like the statistical average of a publishing employee. I'm a white brunette. I used to have bangs. I live in Brooklyn. Like, I've got an adorable dog. Like, you can go to a publishing party and there will be 30 women who look exactly like me. And that's a problem. And, as much as companies are doing to like rectify that, it's not happening fast enough, in my opinion. And American Dirt, I mean, the sad thing about American Dirt is that we all made a big fuss about it, and that book still like rode the bestseller list. I still see that shit in Target. Like it's doing fine. It hurt her not even a bit.
Did you I didn't put this in my interview notes, boys, but did you watch the her interview with Oprah about the reaction that she was getting?
No, because I could feel, it's like the flames on the side of my face. I was just like, my blood pressure just needs to stay where it is. I don't need to watch that.
I would be interested to see your opinion on it because they brought other Latinx authors on there to also speak to Janine and also to speak to the people who publish them, right? Mm-hmm. And what was fascinating about it is a lot of the authors, some of them were antagonistic towards Janine, rightfully so. I think, in some ways. In other ways, they were like, you know what, this really has more to do with why aren't you, and they pointed to the publishers who published it, actually trying to promote people who actually have that lived experience. Because it took my agent and everything so long just to get my story read. So, and this leads me into my next question for you. Do you feel like there is a responsibility that agents play into making sure to showcase diverse works to editors?
Yes, I think. And I think that none of us are doing enough. I think there's been a lot of one of the things that I have not really talked about a lot is this issue, because I don't feel that my efforts in this area have been good enough. My list is still pretty white. And, you know, I stand behind my list. They're all good authors. But, you know, I don't feel like I can say, like, yes, all agents should do this, because I haven't done any of that. You know, I've made efforts, but I haven't, you know, I haven't walked the walk as much as I could. I do think that the responsibility is to, wherever possible, think about who you're passing on. Like, think about what you're turning down and be like, would you like, you know, you have to ask yourself a lot of really uncomfortable questions about, you know, assumed quality and assumed, you know, how much work something's going to be. And I think that a lot of agents don't want to ask themselves those questions because they don't want to have ugly feelings of like, oh, am I making these? You know, no one wants to think badly of themselves, which is why we're in so many of the messes that we're in right now.
Exactly.
But I think that that by and large, the industry isn't interested in asking themselves that question because they don't want the answer to be, which it is, that people's inherent biases, or what the biases you don't know you have.
Yeah.
They don't want to think that that's how they are, when everyone has those biases. And like, if you know about them, you can work around them. You can kind of mitigate for them. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
it does.
Because I do feel like, you know, we are, I mean, I hate the word gatekeeper, but like we do act as sort of like agents. I mean, but you know, we are people who sort of like take people and like get them to the next level. And if we do say that we want diversity, then that's actually something we should be, you know, I don't know what this like salmon jumping upstream thing I'm doing with my hand is.
People not benefiting from the video feed.
It's going to be seen by people. So
That's hilarious.
a glass and a half of wine. It's going to go great.
I love it. No, trust me. We're all, we don't know what, it looks like you had a rosé there.
Mm-hmm. Dark horse. I was going to buy one that had a little pig in like a little hat, but it looked real fancy, and usually I don't like fancy rosés. So.
Yeah, my wife's a big fan of the rosés. I like my IPAs, so I got my hazy little thing.
Nice. I've never been a beer person. It just it tastes like bread to me.
Yeah.
So
I'm all right with that. I was a big bread fan when I was a baby.
I'm still big. This is the body that bread built, you know. My mom's doing the low carb thing right now, and I'm like, have you met my sourdough starter? My like
That's awesome.
I should feed that thing. It's been sitting on my counter for a week.
That's great.
Yikes.
So we see a lot of initiatives, though, in the publishing agency to help give more spotlights to marginalized authors, you know, of all difference, whether, you know, you're a person of color, the queer community. And then we automatically see this pushback from, let's be honest, it's white people. So what do you say to, sorry, Nick, we always tease Nick, he's like the token white dude from us, okay? But I feel like this is important. So what do you say on that flip side to cisgendered straight males who might feel left out? Like, what do you say to those authors?
70% of the books are still published by you?
Right on.
Okay.
I mean, the numbers are still pretty, I mean, the numbers that matter, which is the books that get bought, the books that hit the list, those are still by and large very male. You know, you think about the sort of blockbuster authors, you know, people take James Patterson series seriously. They don't take Danielle Steele seriously. And she actually fucking writes all her own books. So Although I have a friend who's like co-written a bunch of books with James Patterson, and I hear he's a very nice man. But like, just like, don't come for me in the night, James Patterson. But you know, there's nothing you can really say to a person like that. Someone who has decided to be aggrieved is not going to be convinced by like facts, which is another reason we are in the issues we are in. You know, I try not to let those people's opinions affect what I do, because the other thing too is like outside, I have to remind myself that outside of Twitter, no one gives a shit about the stuff that we spend all day yelling at each other about. Like my mom doesn't care. She reads the New York Times book review. She'll like go to the indie bookstore and see what's like out facing, and like those are the books that she buys. And if there's a murder in it, even better. Like that's like the stuff. And like we have to remember that most readers in America are like that. And so all we have to do is sell the books and get them put in front of those readers, and then the readers will make their own decisions. But half the shit that we yell at each other about all the time, like I had to explain the American Dirt stuff to my mom. And I had to explain like the advance and like how it was so big and that was a problem. And then there was that article, I don't know if y'all read this, in the New York Times about the woman who sued the other erotica writer about like, oh my God, I'm not, basically there's a genre of erotica that's like wolf themed, but it's sort of got this like strange biology aspect to it. And she sued another writer about it. And I was like, I'm not explaining the Omegaverse to my parents over like the breakfast table. I'm not doing it. Y'all can Google it. I'm not explaining it here, but so like that, but that's just to say that like the publishing industry and like the writing world is very concerned, rightly so, with these issues. But the larger reading public, I don't think cares as much. So, and in some ways, it's fine if. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
In some ways, it's fine if they don't care, because eventually they're just going to buy what's put in front of them. So we got to make sure that stuff that's put in front of them is the stuff that we want. You know, if we want people to read diversely, they have to have diverse books. I mean, and also the word diverse is like a catch-all, as if a book is diverse just because it's written by, you know, yeah. I have my quibbles, but like we have to make sure in publishing, if this is really what we want people to read, we got to make sure that they're out there and make sure people can find them, because people will read them. I mean, Carmen Maria Machado sold like a fucking bajillion copies of her book, and Mexican Gothic, and like there's all these books that will sell like gangbusters if given the chance. And you know, I think we've seen that over the last few years, and we just got to make sure that keeps happening in like larger volume.
So I guess my question, this is not, Will, if it's not in your notes, just so you know.
Okay. It's okay.
And just where the conversation is going, as far you know, as a Black aspiring author myself, like, what do you think your role is? I mean, I think you kind of answered this a little bit, but what needs to happen in order for this to right itself a little bit? Does that make sense? Like, I mean, like you just said, you know, we have to make sure that the books out there are more diverse, you know, quote unquote, and make it available. But on the publishing side, what needs to change, I guess, is what I'm asking. I know that might be kind of a loaded question, but
oh no, I think it's because I think that so many of these questions are systemic. It's not just about like buying one single book and then like having it fix publishing. You know, we need to get there needs to be more voices in the room at acquisitions meetings, so that a book like American Dirt isn't just like, oh my God, that sounds amazing, perfect, let's just do it. You know, because that's the thing, is like, if it's only one kind of person in a room and people who don't feel like they have the authority to say like, it sounds kind of fucked up, like maybe we shouldn't, then people won't say it. And so more voices in the room, which goes back to the salary and the sort of the hiring level. On the agenting level, it means sort of taking a really good hard look at the stuff that, you know, you're taking on, and the stuff that you're choosing to take on and choosing not to take on, and be like, okay, where at what point in the process are your biases coming in? Like, what are you reading for? What are you looking at? Who are you willing to spend the time to work with, and why? And think about that. And like, don't beat yourself up, but like also think about it. Because if you just don't give a shit, like, fine, just commit to that and don't ever pay lip service to wanting diversity ever again. But there's a lot of individual work and there's a lot of systemic work in diversifying, especially like acquisitions, sales, marketing, especially like when you think about marketing, like half the problem with American Dirt was the marketing. It was positioned as sort of like a literary mainstream, this is so true and so real and so lived. If they had just been like, this is a schlocky thriller about someone running away from a cartel guy,
Yeah.
no one would have given a shit, because millions of those books are published all the time.
Right.
But by positioning it as what they positioned it as, they just set themselves up for this. Does that make sense? Like, it would have been a terrible, offensive thriller, but no one would have given a shit, because it was like, well, it's a terrible, offensive thriller. But because it was like the voice of a generation, it's like, all right.
Yeah, as soon as you market something in a certain way, that's the way it's going to be perceived, and then that's the way, I have to say, like, I have seen better work, marketing work, sales work, editorial work from the publishers I know that have more than one person of color on their staff. And I know who all works there. Like, their pictures are all on the fucking website. I can tell, like, they've got like 3 Sarahs and an Emily, and like they all went to Vassar. Like,
yeah,
not to disrespect the Sarahs and the Emilys, but like,
oh, they'll be fine. Yeah,
they'll be fine. That's the thing, is they will always be fine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I that's a little bit of a rambly way of answering the question, but I think that it is systemic. Like, I tried to explain this. During the pandemic, I was actually in Texas for like 6 months. And I was trying to kind of explain this to my dad, who is like a lovely, well-meaning liberal man, but he is white and he is cis, and he's like, the doctor. And he somehow, like, trying to explain the concept of privilege to him was like deeply painful up until like this year, because I had, he kept thinking that like it was invalidating the actual hard work that he had done. And it wasn't until this year, and I don't know about like what all of the other protests about police brutality didn't tell him, but like this year somehow he was just like, I get it. And I wish it had taken less time, but like so much of this is about the white people in publishing needing to kind of step back and be like, okay, this is not my turn.
Right.
I've had many turns. Someone else needs to get a turn. Like, a lot of people are going to have to step back, and they're going to be really upset by that. But that's in my opinion, what needs to happen.
Do you know what I wish also would happen? Is that I wish publishing companies, since their idea is to make money, would actually donate part of their profits and actually create programs in inner city schools to have reading and writing stories from these kids, an investment. So, like, for me, like, I grew up in the projects, right? I was pretty much the only white looking one in my neighborhood. And what I would always tell everyone, because everyone would give me this, well, you got out, you're different. And I said, you know what? I was like, first of all, I'm not. I was like, there's a certain level of privilege, but also some of the smartest people I've ever met grew up in my neighborhood and were never given a chance, because no one who was in the position of power would mentor them.
Yeah.
And there was no access. So I really wish there would be some way that the publishing houses would look at this as like a 20 to 25 year investment of bringing systems into those impoverished areas and uplifting them through literature and letting kids dream and letting them know that your dreams have value and you can write your way to a better life.
You know what my favorite story of like all time is? So my mom is from Tennessee. She's from Knoxville. And of course, being a good Tennessee girl, we all love Dolly Parton because she's the best.
She's amazing.
But Dolly Parton has this organization called, I think it's the Imagination Library.
Mm-hmm.
And she started it because, I mean, she famously grew up as one of like 12 children in like a 1-room house. You can visit the replica of that house at Dollywood. I have seen it. It is very small. And she started this organization after she found out that the literacy rate in her county, Sevier County, was like really low. And it's a program where you sign your kid up, and for the first 5 years of their life, they get a book a month for free. Wow. And it's now grown into a nationwide program. She just gave away her like millionth book. And the literacy rate in Sevier County has gone from like, you know, I don't know the actual numbers, but it's jumped astronomically over the period of time that this organization has been running. And it's really clear that like, if you give kids access to this, they will, you know, they can take it and run with it. So I think that sounds like a great I think you should suggest that to Random House because that sounds like a great idea.
I really think about it a lot because I'm just like, we really need to do something because a lot of our education system, I mean, even just here in New York,
our education system is so borked, like just
exactly.
Trust me, I've been a teacher for about 12 years now. I teach high school.
Oh my gosh.
It's a disaster.
What subject do you teach?
English, senior English for almost 10 years. And now I've been teaching a little English and digital media. And I'm the yearbook advisor now, but it's just like
yearbook. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, and this year, don't get me started on that, but, cause we're virtual learning. So who knows?
Oh my God. Here's a picture of us like sitting in our pajamas.
Yeah. It's like, everybody send me selfies so we can put it in the yearbook. It's like, what else are we going to do?
Oh my God. Nightmare.
But I mean,
Full
all
nightmare.
that aside, it's like, teaching is, and I think you said this earlier too. It's one of those other jobs where it's like, we're not getting paid a lot to do what we're doing, but we're trying to do what we can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm with Will on this. And I have students every year who are just, I want to be able to do this and this is what I'm into. And I try to help them, but there's just not, I don't know where to turn them, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it gets a little bit, it's one of those things where it's just like, where you just kind of keep spinning your wheels about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, because publishing does make money, but it doesn't make money on the level of other, entertainment entities. So a lot of the times it's just gambling in this kind of like very protracted, drawn out way, and getting publishing companies to like innovate. I mean, it took a fucking global pandemic for some companies to stop issuing paper checks. We were like, ACH transfers fucking exist. No one's going to the office to cash this. We literally had to have business ground to a fucking halt in March because everyone was just like, how do make banking work? And I was just like, we can figure this out. Venmo exists.
So I haven't had a checkbook in at least 15 years.
One. I don't know where it is. I haven't.
It's like, what would I can just tell my bank to send a check to someone if that's what they need. It's like, it's not something I need. I don't know. It's crazy.
I feel like you'd use it for sort of like, the only thing I think I would use it for is like making elaborate bets, like cash this check for $1 bajillion and I'll become rich or something.
Right.
I don't know.
That's so funny.
Oh man.
Okay. So now I'm going to go to not a totally different, but kind of go into my original questions. When you're
are you saying we veered away from that, Will?
We did a little bit, but this was good. I'm glad we veered away from that. Yeah, we did. We were
normally
just
it's like at the bottom of the bottle that I'm ready to talk about that. But
we're intense, Jen. Okay, we just like to get to the heart of things.
Love that journey for us.
So when you're choosing to represent an author, besides it being well written or that the book speaks to you, what other qualities do you look for in an author?
I mean, usually by the time that I make the call and say, like, I want to work with you, my mind is pretty much made up. I'm looking for someone to be excited about. And a lot of that is about what they're writing next, like what kind of stuff that they want for their career. Because if someone gets on the phone and is like, well, I just want to do this kind of book forever until I die, that's fine. But like, sometimes I'm like, but I like this book, but I don't know if I want to work on like 90 more of this book. It's a lot about sort of like the whole package and whether I think that we're going to get along like on a personal level, because it's such an intimate relationship and it's such a, intense relationship, because like, apart from sort of someone's like romantic partner or family, it's like you are being given like not the keys, but like you're in charge of getting this work that has been someone's life to the next stage and and you're like the shepherd of like trying to get it, so it's really important and you want to make sure that it's right. So for me, it's about like excitement. It's about, kind of the vibe. And also like, do I like this book? Do I like this book enough to read it like 40 times before it gets sold? And then another 3 times after that. So yeah.
So when you're working with editorial and sales and marketing team for a book, and say there's changes suddenly in the middle of that author writing the book or going through one round of edits. And I'm going to give you an example. An editor was fired. And now this author's in the middle of the first book.
Child's play.
Right. Yeah. But like, how do you ensure that your client is going to get the right editorial guidance, but also the marketing push that the original editor discussed?
So, two things. The marketing budget is usually in place once the book is bought.
Mm-hmm.
So, unless something has changed, the numbers that they because they do what's called a P&L, which is a profit and loss statement, before they decide to buy the book. And they basically it changes based on the amount of money that they're paying for the book. And they want to know when they buy the book that okay, if we pay this much money and we put this much marketing dollars in, this is how much money we're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times that is set. Editorial guidance is a little tougher, but usually what I try to do is I try to just sort of be, if there is an editor in place who's good at editing and I'm okay, I can step back. If I know that editor is super busy and can't actually take that on, I will step in and be okay, I'm going to work on this with you because we have the edit letter from the first editor and I know what they want. So I'm going to try and do the best I can to make sure that you've done that. I mean, I've had books be orphaned 4 or 5 times before they actually get published. It sucks. But one of those books was Myrtle Lafferty, and
I remember
she got nominated for a Hugo. So
yeah.
it kind of can work out. It's what's the craziest story I heard? I'm trying to think of what's the most bonkers. I mean, there was an editor at Penguin who had 3 of my authors who got laid off right before one of their books came out, and I was just
what?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. I mean, shit happens. You got to roll the punches. I mean, the nice thing about, I feel I've learned so much more about agenting and publishing in the last year since I've joined New Leaf, because they have a dedicated marketing and branding team to look at all our marketing plans and be okay, you have holes here, here, and here, and this is what you need to do. So I feel I've learned a lot there, but really it's just making sure that you have an eye on, you have an eye on what's happening, regular check-ins, regular communication with the publicity and marketing team. Because even if the personnel changes, they will respond to pressure from the outside. So if something changes, if we say have a global pandemic in the middle of publishing season, they know that someone cares that okay, you said you were going to do this ARC drop. Are we still doing an ARC drop since physical ARCs
Right.
Is the post office still going to be a thing in 6 months? I don't know.
People
they will respond to that pressure.
checks,
so it's really just a matter of unrelenting pressure in the face of obstacles.
Yeah.
So then it goes back to, because I've been seeing this just pop up in some of the authors that I research, and one of it is joint accounting clause for books. Do you try to negotiate that out of a contract?
Hell yeah. Joint accounting fucking sucks.
Do you want to explain to everyone, if they're not familiar with joint accounting, what it is?
So joint accounting you usually see with a series. So if there's multiple books on a contract, if you account them jointly, it means that the advance is treated as a whole. So if the first book earns out, but the second book doesn't, you never start seeing royalties on the first book because the second book hasn't earned out. Oh. So in almost all cases, we press for separate accounting. There are so many clauses I hate, and joint accounting is
Do you feel that's going to be the standard to do joint accounts with
Publishers
COVID?
like it a lot. Publishers like it a lot, and they've liked it since before COVID. And that's partially because the first books almost always do better in a series. There is a diminishing return with a series where the first book, many people start a series and then never finish it. But it's not great for the author because, especially if it's a large advance, you do want to start earning royalties eventually because that's where the real money is long term. So I hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard lots
terrible.
of authors be it sucks.
It does. And at a certain level, if you really want to take a deal because it's a certain publisher or a certain amount of money, if I went to my author and I was listen, they want to give you these giant sacks of money, but it's going to be joint accounting. It's my job as the agent to convince them what the right move is. But ultimately, if they're I am unswayed by your argument, I would like the giant sacks of money, please, then it is my job to do that deal.
Right.
So.
Gotcha. So do you feel like the industry is changing in any way post-COVID, even though we're in the middle of it, but eventually, God willing, this is going to end?
Well, people have... I mean, I hope it fucking ends. This blows.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice if it ended?
The
Wouldn't that be great?
apocalypse.
And not the ending like everybody's like pretending it's ending and then going about their lives, but actually ending. That would be cool.
Like the virus is like, we're done.
This is apropos of nothing, but so I'm a big hockey fan, and last week, unfortunately, the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup, and like one of the first things one of their dumb fucking players did was like thank the idiot governor of Florida for opening the bars in time for them to celebrate. And I'm just like, so y'all get through like a 6-week bubble in fucking Toronto, and you're just going to immediately instigate a super spreader event.
Yep.
Good job being Florida. Like,
yeah.
I was watching football today, and I have the red zone, and they're bouncing around game to game. And the amount of stadiums that have fans, of course, Tampa Bay and all these other ones. And it's like, they have like, over 5,000 fans in that stadium. And I'm like, guys, this isn't over. Like, why are we doing this? But anyway, that's something else.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing has been, all right, what can we do to immediately pivot to online events? And I think that the online event thing is actually really exciting because it feels less punishing when there's only like 6 people at an online event. Like if you're like doing a bookstore tour and there's like no one there, it's like really psychologically taxing. But like when you're just on an Instagram live, if you're not the host, you can't really tell who's there. Right. So I think that psychologically that's great. It's cheaper. You can be more flexible. You can have guests from all over the world talking to each other. I had a Sasha Lorenz who wrote A Wicked Magic did an event with Sarah Reese Brennan. It was Halloween in July. It was really fun, and it was just like a convo on Instagram Live. And like Sarah Reese Brennan lives in Ireland, and Sasha lives in Michigan. So like there's so much more flexibility in terms of doing those things. People have had to really get creative. They've had to look at like, okay, what moves books? What moves copies? What gets people to pre-order? What gets them into the stores? People's buying patterns have changed. People have had to look really closely at like, okay, so what's going on politically? Like, are people in the stores? Like, are people spending money? Like at the beginning, it was all about like saving indie bookstores. And now it's like, okay, how do we keep that going? I think it's been really interesting and instructive for publishers. I don't know if they're going to learn anything from it long term, but I mean, I, for one, would love to have sort of all the traditional trappings of like a book party, but I think until this is over, we're not going to see it. Yeah. Until there's a functioning vaccine.
Yes.
Yeah. Which let's hope it happens quick.
It's not. It's going to be like 2 years.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
I need events next summer.
Like a gigantic bummer, but
yeah, no, it's totally fine. All right, let me look at my next question. Sorry. Do you think, though, that COVID, I'm not sure how the sales are with things, but do you think this is going to affect publishers taking risks on work that maybe if we were in a healthy economy, they would have taken?
I feel like, maybe. It's really hard to say because at this point, no one knows what's going to work in a very real way. People are like, sure, why not? About so many things. Because it's hard to tell while we're in the middle of it, if this is going to be like a recession, like any other, or if this is going to be like oh no, this is like getting real bad. And, publishing weathered World War II. So, I think that they're sort of like, well,
yeah,
we're still here.
It's really hard to tell. I mean, I think that right now everyone's kind of just, because everything that's being bought now is being bought with the understanding that it's going to be publishing into a different world, because it'll be, right now, things that are bought right now are like late 2021 at the earliest 2022, so they're assuming that in 2 years, everything's going to be different. And I think that the fact that anything is being bought at all is like a giant sign of optimism, because it's like, well, there will still be a world to publish books into.
Theoretically, yeah.
So,
maybe.
I like the optimistic approach, honestly.
Right?
I really do.
Me too. I need it.
That's what the alcohol is for.
Yeah, exactly. Cheers.
What what is your biggest focus then for the rest of 2020 and then 2021? Like, are you gearing yourself up for something particular? Like, do you go in and be like, all right, I have this game plan now. This is how we're going to do things.
I mean, sort of. I haven't really signed anyone new in a while. I was working on getting like the stuff that I had in development out. And I mean, I did sign Ellen Kushner, which is very exciting.
Amazing.
For me.
I love her. I love her
so
work.
Oh my God. I'm actually co-agenting her with Susie Townsend, who is just like a wizard. I'm just like, teach me your ways. But I haven't signed anyone new in a long time. So I'm really excited to like find new people, bring new blood onto my list. So that's going to be my focus for the rest of 2020. So I'm excited.
That's amazing. So we have a couple of our questions from our Discord channel.
Ooh, Discord. I'm in a Discord for like a hockey podcast I support. It's the only Discord. And I'm like, I'm an old, like, I think these Tampa Bay Lightning people are terrible. It's like, I concur.
So this one comes from Amelia. What do you look for in a query letter?
I mean, I skim query letters. I like to think of the way that I've always described query letters is it is the substitute for the person in the bookstore. I pulled something off the shelf because I think it looks interesting and I go to the flap copy. I'm like, all right, that sounds interesting. And then I'll read the first page. So it's got to have something that grabs me. If it's like overwritten or if it's like giving me like way too much information, I'm sort of like, ugh. But really it just needs to be sort of concise and interesting enough to get me to the pages, because that's really what will get me into it.
Okay.
But also all agents read queries with the understanding that like writing marketing copy is not authors' strong suits. So
that's
I feel
good to
like
hear.
authors worry a lot about queries, and I'm just like, no, actually, we know that you're all very bad at this. It's fine.
It's a daunting task too, and I know that's
It's
why.
not fun. I know it's not fun,
Yeah.
but
It's funny you say that because I'm not going to name the agent, but I took a Futurescape workshop, and one of the agents, we did this week-long manuscript review. And so in our class, and she was like, listen, I'm just letting you know that I don't ever read my query letters. I read the first page. If the first page works for me, I'll send it. She goes, but don't take my advice because people will read your query letters. I personally just don't. I go right to the first page.
I for a long time I didn't really read query letters. I sort of was like skip to the writing because the writing is ultimately what decides. But it's also very helpful. The thing that I think of as as being helpful for a query letter is that it shows me that you know how to think about your work in the context of the genre that you want to be published into. So for me, I'm looking at like, do you have comp titles that are current? Do you have an understanding of what's being published now? Do you have an understanding about like the emotional character arcs of your book enough to sort of like talk about them in the query? Because those are the things that are really going to kind of keep me going. If I read a query and it's like, this is going to outsell Harry Potter, and I'm like,
oh yeah, please. like delusional party of one. Yeah.
I mean, it is every agent's dream to find the book that will outsell Harry Potter.
Of course.
I will not say no to it. Especially now. But
yeah. Oh, JK. Oh, what is going on?
Tom Stoppard signed that letter in support of her. And I was like, Tom Stoppard, I'm so disappointed in you.
I was just saying this in our Discord channel. I feel like the lizard people have kidnapped JK Rowling, and this creature who is talking now is not her.
Someone actually I think it was Alas on Tumblr of all terrible places, because that is still a place that I go in the year of our Lord 2020.
I love it. Just so you know, I love it. I mean, I love a chronological timeline. I'm a simple creature. But someone was like, it's really easy to trace. It's like QAnon. It's like you can trace someone being radicalized from a very real fear of women being victimized to like reading posts that sound scientific into craziness. Like it was, it's tragic and understandable and also infuriating, because I'm like, I really loved those books.
Yeah.
In a way that I don't think I can really describe. And now I can't think about them
Same here.
thinking about her being like a fucking monster. And I'm just like,
yeah,
anyway.
I just can't with her. It sucks because I loved those books and they were a huge influence of just writing and finding magic in books again, you know, and now she's just crazy.
And those books have their problems, you know, like.
Yeah, no, what kills me about it is I was never a huge fan of the books. And I know this probably upsets Will a little bit when I say this, but I watched all the movies and all that, but my wife and my kids and my in-laws are really, really into them, you know, and I have a young kid who's trans as well, and like I haven't had the heart, like we haven't had that conversation on any level, because I don't know how to have that conversation, you know what I mean? It's like how disappointing it is for me and my wife. You know, my wife's on a whole different level of fandom with this. The last thing we did before COVID hit was we went and saw The Cursed Child in San Francisco with my in-laws. And it's like all of that. And then all of this happened. And it's like, oh, I don't even know what to do.
I can't even imagine. And I think about when the last movie came out, maybe there was some event and it was J.K. Rowling and like the whole cast of the movies. And she gave this beautiful speech that like still makes me cry when I watch it, where she was like, Hogwarts will always be there to welcome you home. And I'm like, why would you go and put a fucking caveat on that?
Right.
Like, exactly. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, ugh. Anyway, what were you talking about? Let's talk about something different.
I'm
giving myself
a
sad. Like,
but real quick though, I know we have a few more questions from our Discord channel. And a couple questions that we usually ask at the end. How are you on time? We're at the hour mark. This is my job.
I'm good.
Okay.
Father time.
Yeah, we call him Father Time. Yeah, drink up, Jen. Drink up.
Okay. So we'll finish. We'll do these questions and then, we should be good. Okay.
Imagine me doing this panel live at MoCon, and you can imagine what MoCon's like. I told Maurice that he gets a do-over on his birthday, since this was supposed to be his like birthday MoCon. And I was just like, you're just going to get, because I actually literally my 35th birthday is tomorrow, and I had
happy birthday.
Thank you. I had like plans for my birthday. It was going to be huge, and I was like, I guess I'll go to dinner
outside.
DoorDash.
I was going to rent the ice rink. Like it was going to be a whole thing.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Next year I turn 35 again. So
there you go.
Amen.
Maurice is turning 50 again for MoCon, so we're fine.
Yeah.
There we go. So this question is from Constance in our Discord. And she said, this is funny because this kind of touches on what we were talking about. Some agents request a synopsis that shows the dry plot points. Others say a little voice should be evident in the synopsis. In your opinion, how much personality should be injected in this portion of a submission?
Oh, I do not care. But I mean, I don't really have a preference. I mean, a little voice is always fun, but like really a synopsis is like purely, I mean, honestly, I use a synopsis so that like, if I get to page 50 in a book and I'm kind of feeling like, I like this, but I'm a little worried about the direction, I read the synopsis to be like, are you going to do something dumb that I hate in the next 100 pages? And if you're going to do something dumb that I hate, I'm probably going to be like, you're doing something dumb that I hate and this isn't for me. But also it's useful for later on because, oftentimes when your book's going to acquisitions or your book is getting passed around for film and television, not everyone can read the entire book before they make a decision on it. So the synopsis is really like a tool that is for people who do not have time to read the whole book to get a sense of the rest of the plot. So if you are one of those people who can inject voice into a synopsis, like Mazel Tov, you're a wizard. Like, go for it. But I think also a dry, boring synopsis is fine. Like, I like to know, like, yes, so-and-so stabs so-and-so, and then the book is over. Like, that's also fine.
Yeah. Amazing. This one is from Debbie. If an interested agent contacts you, what questions should you ask the prospective agent?
I mean, I think the big questions are, what do you think of the book? Do you think it needs work? You know, for them to, describe the work that they think needs done. Because you want to make sure that the vision, that they see your book the way you see your book. Because often, I've heard from clients where they're like, yeah, I was speaking to this agent, and then they were like, yeah, this needs to be like a thriller, but this is like a quiet contemporary novel, and I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. Like, you gotta know your own book and know the book that you want to write, so that when you hear that feedback, you can be like, oh, actually, that does make sense. Like, this is a good way to like make the second half better or whatever. Also, they should be able to very clearly explain to you their agency's commission structure, their agency's policies for most things, like the roles everyone in the agency plays. Like, they should be able to describe like their foreign rights strategy, their film strategy if they have one. Because even if they don't have that stuff in-house, like, you should be able to know what the strategy is in those departments. I'm very lucky that I'm at an agency now where it's like a one-stop shop. Like, we've got film, we've got foreign, we've got marketing and branding. Actually, for like the 3 weeks that I was interviewing with New Leaf, my sister was like, I was like, oh, I spoke with Joanna today. And Abby was like, oh, is this in-house marketing and branding? I was like, but yes, it is. They should be able to speak to those things. They should also be able to speak to sort of their communication style and the way that they set expectations around like submissions and communication. Because even if they're not able to sort of like execute to that level all the time, like, I have a conversation with my clients where if we're sending a book out on submission, I'm like, okay, it's out on submission. When do you want to hear news? Do you want to hear when I get a pass? Do you want to hear every month? Do you need to hear every 2 weeks that nothing's happening? Like, and as best as I can, I will try and hit that metric. I also think that like the most important question isn't even like a question. It's just sort of like, do you like them? Do you like talking with them? Because you're going to be spending so much fucking time talking to them.
Yeah.
Like, more time than like your spouse at some points. Like, it's going to be something where you're going to be talking with them every week for the next however many years. So, like them. It helps if you like them.
Yeah.
I think.
For
Makes
sure.
sense.
So this question is from Dan, and this is a 3-part question. So I'm going to read the 3
Love
parts.
a 3-part question.
I know, don't you them? Are pitching?
I got a full glass of wine. I love a
Yeah. Drink up. Are pitching agents at cons and writing events legitimate? Do agents really use them as a way to find new authors? Actually, it's 4 parts, so just hang in there. Some cons charge for these pitch sessions. Do you feel like it's a scam? And is it an ideal situation? Or should we just be saving money for just a query?
I have gotten several clients from conferences. So, I mean, I feel like it's up to you. Like, don't feel like you have to spend money on a conference for that personal connection, because it may or may not work out. And if you would rather not spend the money, it's totally fine to just query. I mean, my favorite found someone at a conference story is the book Frozen Crown, which comes out in January. I met this author at a conference called the Work Conference in New York, which is actually a great conference. If they ever do it in person again, everyone should do it because it's a lot of fun. It's very small, very intimate. And I had the first 10 pages of her manuscript, and all I had were questions. I was just like, these aren't critiques so much as questions about this book. And really, I need you to send this book to me tomorrow so that I can read it, because I want to rep it very badly. And someone else offered before me, and I was just like, no, fuck that guy. You got to sign with me. And we sold the book for like a lot of money to HarperCollins when it comes out next year. So when agents do these conferences, we're absolutely looking to get out there. We're absolutely looking to find people. And it's really up to the individual person to decide whether or not that's worth it for them. I mean, I would hate to feel like someone felt like they had to pay to get access to me, because my query inbox is always open. So what I would say is, like, rather than like looking at like the sort of pitching opportunities, like if you're at a conference, like, are there workshops that an agent is giving? Are there opportunities to like network and mingle with agents? Because that almost is a little bit more helpful, where you can say like, actually, I do like this person, or actually, no, it doesn't seem like the books that they're talking about are not the things that I actually am excited about writing. What can you learn and what can you do at that conference aside from pitching the agents? And then I think, like, once you're spending like once you've decided that spending the $150 to go to the conference is worth it, spending the because honestly, the money usually goes partially to the agents, and that kind of supplements our income. So we appreciate it greatly as well. But we're not doing it necessarily because we're just like, I will listen to none of these pitches and none of these clowns. Like, we're doing it because we want, like, we're not sitting there for like fucking 2 days to not sign people. Like, we want to find things.
Right.
So
this is what I feel like. I love shipping and handling. I love when you and Bridget talk to each other, because the one thing I've really learned from your podcast is truly about finding the right person for your book.
And
I thought you were going to say it depends.
No. Well, it depends.
Because I do love your show, Jen, and it depends. I love those. I love that answer.
Enamel pins before all this started. We were like, we're going to make enamel pins and have them be like supporter rewards, and then China shut down. We were like, well, I guess that's dumb.
Well, we would buy them. Okay, just saying. We will wear them.
For sure.
Okay, for sure.
Delightful.
No, because I feel like it really taught me a couple things about getting the right person for your book, and really not just opening a book or doing research on it and just sending it to like 50 people. Like, really be selective about, who you want your agents to be. That it's really about finding that great partnership. And I think that I love that I'm learning that from you.
Well, and the thing that I also want to point out to people is that will change over time. And the person who is the perfect agent for you at the beginning of your career, as your needs change, that might change. And that's not a bad thing. Like, it's always sad to sort of have to say goodbye to someone and say, like, you're not the person I need right now. But like, your needs change, and being honest about that is also important. I think that not enough authors kind of take that on. They're like, I pledged my troth to this person and I must stay with them forever. And it's like, actually, no, it's not a binding. It's like, you can say no. You can say I.
So we have a question from Barbara, and she asks two-part question. What is on your wish list? And are you open to unsolicited queries, etc.?
Definitely open to queries. On my wish list, I want something fun. Like, I love fun things. And that definition is very broad. Like, I love a romp. I love a heist. I love a murder. I love a crime. Like, anything in any genre combination is just like, if like a Westing game in space. The sky's the limit. I mean, I just want to be entertained at this point. At this point, I'm just like, you want me to think?
Right?
Yeah. It's too much.
Dislike. I have been trying to read How Much of These Hills is Gold for like 6 months, and I'm just like, it's too literary. I just think I can't do it. I'm just like, I'm so upset every time I open the book. I'm like, I recognize that this writing is beautiful, but also I'm so stressed out on behalf of these characters. I bought it in hardcover, just like, fuck. But yeah.
2020, just doing us all types of well.
Right?
Can I tell you, during quarantine, I read probably 100 mystery novels.
Really?
Just like fucking Agatha Christie, Dorothy L. Sayers, Marjorie Allingham, just like old British people in fucking manor houses solving crimes. I read so many, and it was great. It was like just balm for my brain.
Right?
We just did an episode where we all read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. And there's just something about murder that
the terrible original title of that.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We didn't read that edition.
Real racist. Just real racist. Also, once disappeared for many days and then reappeared, checked into a hotel under her husband's mistress's name.
Problematic.
Well, yeah.
But there's something to be said about murder that just cheers us up in the middle of
I
pandemic.
I wrote my college thesis on mystery novels, like British mystery novels, about like why they became so popular and why they remain so popular. And it's the fantasy of the resolution, the fantasy of someone can come into a community and identify the thing that is making the community the problem, i.e. the murderer, and then they remove that, and then the community can be fine again. It's a fantasy of like being able to live an unstressed life.
For real. So we do have I know all of us are just like, oh, sigh. We have a last minute question that just popped up in Discord.
Bring it.
How do you deal with writers that aren't very consistent with their output? Being that a lot deal with mental illness or other things that make it hard to stick with things for long periods.
Yeah.
Pour the rest of that alcohol in there. You're like, none of my clients are like that.
I mean, here's the thing. I like to know as much as I can up front, because without judgment, it is hard for me to get people the space that they need if I don't know what like the issues are. So that's actually another thing that you should ask your agent when you're talking to them is like, okay, what are your expectations for like output? Because that will be very instructive. I have some clients who are like, I have written a book. It has been 2 months. Would you like to read it, please? And I'm like, wow, that is very fast. And then I have clients who are like, I am going off to the mountains to write a book. Please do not speak to me until I have emailed you to tell me that it is done. You know, and it is helpful to me to know that up front and to sort of manage that. Regardless, if anything ever comes up, I just need to know. Like, I need to not be worried about someone. So usually what I'll do is I'll kind of check in and be like, hey, you know, deadline's in like a month. Like, how are you feeling? Do I need to go and ask for more time? Because the more time, the more advanced warning I can give the publisher to say like, hey, so-and-so's having a real rough fucking year because everything is garbage. You know, the better it is. Because if publishers don't know, then they just assume that it's all fine. But most of the time, they're actually really cool. They're just like, that's legit. Like, everything is on fire. I think I've had to ask for extensions for like 6 people this year. Yeah. Because everything is just like terrible.
Well,
so
if you live in California like me, it's literally on fire. So it's crazy.
California, Oregon, and Seattle.
Yeah,
I used to just have to send emails to people in California, and now it's just like, hey, West Coast.
Yeah.
How you doing?
You live in this entire region? Are you Are you okay?
Is everything on fire? Are you good? Do I need to send you stuff? Like, are you good? But no, I mean, the one thing I would say that, like, I feel like a lot of authors that I talk to at conferences and stuff are like, oh, I just don't want to bother my agent. I'm like, it's literally our job to be bothered. It is literally our job to, you know, answer your questions and, you know, assuage your fears. Like, if we don't know about it, we can't mitigate for it, you know? So I just always tell people to, like, listen, even if you feel embarrassed, even if you feel like it's not a good reason, like, tell me, because, you know, fuck a publisher. Like, they've got a million other books. Like, it's fine. Like, whatever. You turned it in 2 months late. Fuck it. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Have you actually ever seen when someone doesn't hit a deadline that the publisher actually like totally gets mad about it? Just stories I've heard is just they're like, oh, okay, we'll get it to when we can.
Most of the time that doesn't happen, but there have been cases, like the most famous one is the guy who wrote Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Because
I love that show.
He wrote Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and then I think he had one more book under contract that they were like, it's going to be an original thing. It's not pastiche. And I know about this because it was written about in like 6 different outlets. So I was like, this is the thing that happened. And he wrote something that was a pastiche and tried to turn it in, and then they sued him to get the advance back.
Wow.
Dang.
But like most of the time it's like, and also most of the time the way that publishers deal with non-delivery, which is the technical term, is if, you know, you deliver a book that they don't deem acceptable, or if you just never write it, they either are like, okay, the contract is canceled and you owe us the money, but you can pay us the money if you sell that book somewhere else. But if you never sell it somewhere else, it's like,
Right.
it depends on the contract. Sometimes they're like, you need to give us that money back. But most of the time, there are sort of structures built into the contract to allow authors to like revise and like take the time. But
can I ask one more
like,
question?
If you give someone like enough time, like it's like whatever. Yeah. Ask away.
Or you're getting in there before I was.
I got
about
nowhere to go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Where can I go?
I don't know.
I'm in this room now. It's fine.
No, I understand that. What do you do? Like Anne Leckie, who wrote the Ancillary Justice series, she had a conversation with her agent basically saying, you know, I don't want to do a book a year. I can do a book every 2 years. Are you comfortable as an agent? Are you okay with that? Like, do you feel like that's a good sense of like, I totally get it?
Honestly, that's great, because if someone knows their own output well enough to be able to like time their output that well, that's great. You know, not everyone has to be a book a year author, especially like, I mean, I feel like apart from romance I think is the one exception, because romance authors expect a book every year from their favorite authors. But for most other genres, it's like, yeah, actually, like I'm fine with a book every 2 years from my favorite author. Being able to know your own output and gauge it accurately and then actually accurately predict it is great, because the worst thing is over-promising and under-delivering. You're like, yeah, no, totally, I can do a book every year. I can do a book every year. And then you're like, oh no, wait, I hate everything and I cannot do a book every year. Like, then you've disappointed people, and then you have that feeling of disappointment in yourself. So yeah, I mean, I have a client who just writes really fucking slowly, and she's just like, yeah, you'll get it when you get it. And like, I love that.
You're
great.
Like, all right,
just
fair enough.
Yeah, great, fabulous. Sure, why not? Being honest about like what you need and what you can do. And this is a lesson that I have needed to learn, because like I overpromise and underdeliver all the time. You know, being honest about it just makes the working relationship with you and all of your business partners so much better.
I'm sure. Marshall, did you want to ask away?
No, I'm doing my time thing. And so before we get to the very last deal, are there any other questions from the two of you before we do
our last question?
Our last two questions.
Yeah. Nick?
You good, Nick?
Yeah, I got nothing. I'm just enjoying every answer that we're getting.
I'm so stoked to have you here, Jen. I can't even tell you. Like, this is so much fun.
So fun. Awesome.
It's been a blast. So the last two things we normally do is before we get to our very, very last question, normally what we do is ask folks to talk about what they're excited about, things they have coming up, and social media stuff, and how people can find you after this.
Like things I'm excited about right now. So the books that I just had come out in September, I'm very excited about still, even if we break and smash it. And then in December we have A Certain Hunger by Chelsea Summers. And then social media. Oh man, I can be found
and plug your podcast as well, please, because it's amazing.
I can be found on the podcast Shipping and Handling, which is on iTunes as Shipping and Handling, shippingandhandlingpodcast.com. Then my personal social media, everything is Suddenly Jen. So I'm Suddenly Jen on Instagram and Twitter. And please don't friend me on Facebook. It's mostly from my parents.
I feel you.
Yeah.
It's a good warning.
I know.
Awesome.
Facebook is for family.
Facebook is for family, and I keep trying to quit it, and then I just am like, I fucking can't.
Mm-hmm. I feel that pain.
All right, well, you get to ask the last one.
Yeah, great. So I like asking, we usually have this for like any authors who are on board, but I want to ask you, what keeps you agenting? Like what makes you still love what you do?
The feeling I have when I can call someone and say someone wants to buy your book is just, I mean, I cannot describe it. It is just the best feeling because someone worked so hard to write a book, and then I, went off and did my thing and tried to sell it, and then getting an offer, just coming back and being like, yes, someone wants to buy it, someone wants to publish it, like they want to have a call with you. It's the best feeling. And auctions are great. Auctions are really great. But like, even if there's only one person in the mix, like that feeling of like someone wants this is just the best feeling. And to be able to kind of like deliver that feeling over and over to someone, be like, someone loves the writing. Someone loves the shit that you're doing. Someone thinks that you're great. It doesn't get old. It does not get old. It's so good.
That's awesome.
That's
great.
great.
Like the best answer. Yeah.
Like I'm over here, I'm getting antsy. Like, oh my gosh, you're telling me someone wants to buy my book?
She's not talking to you, Nick. She's not talking
I know, I know, but your energy, it's contagious.
Well, we really appreciate you spending time with us today, Jen.
It's been so much fun,
and we really hope we can do it again. We're big fans of Maurice. We've known him forever, and we love all of. We just love having you, and just stoked to have you here today. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Thank
we had
you
a great
so much.
time.
Anytime. Just let me know.
We might have to do every 2 months. Wine with Jen.
We'll be like, Jen, we'll send you some wine,
This has been Just Keep Writing, a podcast for writers by writers to keep you writing. Check out our website at justkeepwriting.org. You can find links to our social media and Discord channel in the show notes, as well as any other links mentioned during the show. If you want to support the show, the best way to do that is patreon.com/justkeepwriting. Thanks for listening.
Now just keep writing.